Yeah, therefore I am. Right, hold on, I actually did, but yes, I am recording, yes. A lot has happened the last 3 weeks. I've honestly been struggling enough to get out of bed, so not done much. Through a few things, and I did not make any more engagement videos for quite some time. It's been actually a full month. That's kind of crazy. I have been watching the protests. I've been watching the No Kings protest, the ICE protest. Happy to see that. I'm happy that's going on. Relieved that's going on. Happy to see people actually standing up. Some cool stuff happened in Portland, I think. They had the black bloc tactics. They were hitting back they're not hitting back the tear gas, they were diffusing the tear gas cans. And they were blowing the tear gas back, which is pretty smart. I'm not going to talk about the big things like the current events, as in, I'm not going to talk about the World War III possibly happening. I'm not going to talk about Iran or Israel. It is kind of funny though, looking through posts from like a week ago and hearing people say things like, you just go back since the election and hear people saying things like, I'm really worried about this, and then the comments are calming them down like, no, that won't happen, it's not going to be that bad, don't doom scroll, and then looking back. And it's, oh yeah, a month after that, this happened. A month after that, they were pulling people off the streets. A week ago, someone was like, I'm worried about World War III. And everyone's saying, don't doom scroll, you're don't worry about it, you're just overreacting. Go get tested for OCD or something. And then, it's, what, 3 days ago? 3 days ago, Trump just bombs Iran. I think the core disconnect here is that some people expect that if you're coming from the psychology point of view, you think about things rationally. Therapy and the toxic positivity view, well, I won't say toxic positivity. Traditional therapy and those treatment methods are based on trying to rationalize irrational fears. Therapy can't do anything for rational fears. If the patient's perception of what's going to happen is accurate, and the patient's perception of the consequences of that outcome is accurate, then at that point you either gaslight them or you accept that they're right. Winning therapy. That's a joke, but in a non-joking sense, it's true. I think part of the divisiveness, because there's a lot of different views on what's going on right now, or just the talk about what's going on right now. Some people are for it, and they are horrible people. Some people are trying to educate about it. Some people are focused on documenting it, and I think that's kind of where I am. I'm not really so much calling for action anymore as I am just saying, hey, this happened. And other people are trying to fight against it. Good on them for having hope. I should have hope. I don't feel much hope, but I should. I was excited watching the No Kings protest, so it was good to see people getting together, seeing the protesters in LA dancing in the streets, seeing people in Portland having multiple clashes with police, in which the police pretty much showed up and then left. It's pretty impressive. Pretty impressive display of force with the police showing up. The protesters not running away immediately and the police deciding to leave. Incredible. Of course, they tear gassed a few people. Not good. And they arrested a few. At At least, though, like, you do have rights. You don't have rights on the street, but you do have rights in the courts. So if you get arrested at a protest, you could always countersue for damages. I gotta go to a protest and, like, pretend to be sane, and then get arrested for something stupid. Have them kettle me and arrest me. And then just claim that I have, like, a mental health downward spiral. I was perfectly normal before, and then I was arrested, and now I'm like this. $250,000 of damages. I guess it is true, though. I used to be sane. I used to be like a kid. I was a kid in the Iwana community. I made video games, and they were cringe, and I was told they were cringe, and that was that. Simpler times. Then my life got turned upside down. How does the song go? I was watching a video earlier, and it claimed something along the lines of, America's forgotten how to look ahead. And I think that's exactly what the problem is. I think that's what you could point to on everything. I don't know when it started. I think Reaganomics was definitely a pivotal point on that path. It really does feel, though, like America is just not looking ahead. And I think that's where I would look at America and the American government, and I'd be scratching my head, baffled by the stupidity. It is stupidity. Especially in this current administration, the second Trump administration, where and I've gone back and forth, like, are they trying to sabotage the government? Are they trying to cause mental health problems to get worse so they can imprison people and put them on farms? Are they trying to deport immigrants so that they can enslave them on the farms? No, they're actually sending them to El Salvador, so what's up with that? And what I've come to realize, and I think the video helped me settle on that, is there is no plan. There is no scheme. This isn't like some super villain trying to sabotage the town, trying to turn the people against themselves, trying to brainwash you. It really is just spontaneous. And I know it's dangerous to assume stupidity, or to, like, write it off as incompetency. And frankly, I did write off the second Trump campaign as incompetent, or not the second Trump campaign, but I wrote off in 2024, the election, Trump, I thought would just be a failure of a candidate because he was so incompetent. And then I realized that people actually voted for him. But to be fair, the Democrats ran a horrible campaign. I'm not going to get into that right now, but that's just to say, I wouldn't underestimate them. It's not that they're stupid and therefore not a threat. It's not like looking at an injured animal limping towards you. It's more of like an insane person, and you're tied up in their basement, and they're fighting with the voices in their head, pointing at the demons, talking about the great occult rising, holding an obsidian knife, and you know they're going to do something. You've got like 12 other hostages down with you. Something's happening. And you can't plead with, you can't reason with that person. That's the scary thing. Because while Trump claims to be a populist, we know he's not. We know he doesn't work for anyone except for himself and some of his rich allies. By effective working for himself and wanting rich allies, he works for the rich allies. Trying to fight Trump, or trying to fight the MAGA movement now, it's like trying to fight a tidal wave of... It's not even rational, you got people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. making everyone sick because they're crazy. You can't reason with them. Yeah, they're making the white Christians sick too, but you can't argue that with him because he thinks that he's making the white Christians healthy. ICE deporting our essential workers, you can't argue with that. Because you can argue that, oh yeah, it's hurting everyone. These people do important work. They're not criminals. But those arguments fall flat because Trump doesn't care that they're not criminals. Trump doesn't care that these are essential workers. Trump just does what Trump wants to do. And he decides he wants to deport these people. He decides he wants to levy tariffs against every other nation on Earth except for Russia. And so he does it. And then Trump's like, oh, maybe I'm being played by Putin. And you go, yeah, Trump, I think you are getting played by Putin. But then he forgets that and moves on to the next thing. And continues getting played by Putin. And yeah, now he's just nuking Iran. But again, Trump isn't the sole problem. It's not just a Trump thing. Trump isn't the sole issue. He's an effect of the bigger, wider trend, which frankly has passed party lines. America hasn't invested in people. America hasn't invested in its people at all. And this is kind of brings me back to Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2016 and again in 2020, and the rational points that people like Bernie Sanders and the AOC are arguing, which you'd think would just be, you think there's some way you could say them and phrase them in a nicer way, but no, the country doesn't care. You can argue that it's good for people to go to college and be educated, and then neoconservatives and neoliberals will say, go to college, send your kids to college, no matter the cost. And you argue, well, having people in debt isn't good either. You shouldn't have to choose between going to college and having any financial stability ever in your life again. Although, frankly, people who didn't go to college also don't have very many prospects, so it just fucks up everyone. You could argue college is a good thing, the government should pay for it because it's good to have people going to college, and then they come back to you with socialists, communists, get out, and they kick you off the stage, and that's it. You can't argue with that. Maybe this is an effect of McCarthyism, anti-communist fear, the Red Scare. Maybe this is an effect of corporate brainwashing, that people, corporations want to normalize being in debt, so that everyone's in debt, so that everyone's forced to work all the time for them and have to take miserable wages because they have nothing to fall back on. It's sickening, it really is. And it's also the American way of life. This is why I think so many, including myself, assumed that this would end. We assume that Bernie and the progressivists would win because they have such a pragmatic platform. But of course, we have the two-party system, and the Democrats don't want to run that platform because everyone in Congress is corrupt. Not everyone, but Democrats and Republicans alike in Congress are corrupt. You have the the quasi-Dems that people like Fetterman, Christian Sinema, who now actually is just a Republican. His name is, what is that guy's name? Manchin. Joe Manchin. Close enough. Joe Manchin. I know my arguments are unstructured here. It's been 5, maybe 9 years of hearing what seems like a practical platform be denied because, nuh-uh, we don't do that here. And at a certain point, you just give up. Like, I could structure these arguments in the most rational way, but it's not going to make people want to vote for it. How can a democracy serve 0.1% of its population? And it doesn't even serve, it permits. Like Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, Peter Thiel, they aren't served by the current American government. It's just the American government doesn't stop them. It's not like the American government helps tech companies or tech startups. They get their money because venture capital invests in these startups, and they're playing a bunch of games with money on paper. You start a company, someone buys 5% of it for someone buys 5% of your company for $5 million. Now your company's worth $100 million. You only have $5 million, but you can leverage 50 million by giving half the company to someone. None of this makes sense. It's crazy. It's inherently irrational. How do you argue with irrationality? This entire country is just built on spite and hate and cope. People who are poor and struggling and then look towards billionaires as idolize these people who are destroying everyone's life, because to a poor person that's struggling to make ends meet, the lifestyle of these billionaires seems luxurious. That's the only way I could possibly... I don't know if that's true necessarily. I've never been in that position. I've always hated these people, like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. But that's the only way I can really rationalize it in my head. How can there be Elon Musk fanboys even before the 2024 election? Right? Go back to when Elon Musk was just an idiot that had a bunch of tech stocks and would pitch to investors. The investors obviously don't know what they're hearing. I think that's maybe the point. Elon Musk goes on stage, and Elon Musk, I mean, any one of these Silicon Valley folk, they say a bunch of smart-sounding things that make no sense when you actually look at them, like paint on solar panels. What does that mean? You paint on a solar panel? How do you do that? It doesn't make any sense, because of course it doesn't make sense. It's not real. It doesn't work. But Elon Musk announces that. Or now with the, in 2021, was it? The crypto thing? We're going to put this on the blockchain. We're going to have personal job applications on the blockchain. And investors go, wow, look at that. And they all pitch in, and no one even thinks of questioning the speaker, because every one of those investors just wants to seem smart, seem like they know what they're doing. So they're not even going to question the idea being pitched to them, which inherently makes no sense. And I get the fear, you don't want to seem like you're the only person that doesn't know what's going on. So instead, no one knows what's going on, but everyone pretends like this is a smart idea, and they all cheer along when Mark Zuckerberg announces that he's making AI accounts, like AI run accounts on Meta, which is a real thing that happened and was as absurd as you might expect. Why would a social media platform that's supposed to be about connecting with people in your real life have AI-generated accounts? AI-generated people documenting fake, made-up events with AI-generated images, an AI-generated profile picture, and it's all run just to flood the site with meaningless content. Why would you want that? But the way that these companies, and it's not just Silicon Valley, but it definitely is. Silicon Valley has this everywhere. It's also just a lot of big firms. The people at the top surround themselves with yes men who just approve every idea they suggest. So yeah, every company has a mobile app now. Random stores are using apps to unlock the bathrooms. It doesn't make any sense. It's just a whole bunch of tech gizmos thrown in places randomly. I'm gonna connect this to fan games, and it's kind of silly, but it feels like you're playing a game. If you were to put it in fan game terms, explain your world, your issues with Silicon Valley in fan game terms. But it doesn't matter, I'll be able to fucking do it. It's just a bunch of... It's like if you were to have a fan game which randomly throws in not another needle engine gimmicks inside what should be like a normal needle game. It's just a single one-off object thrown in somewhere. That's what the modern tech crazes feel like. Didn't Disney launch Marvel NFTs? I do remember that being a thing. Or at least being talked about as a possible thing. NFTnow.com, is this an official thing? Oh god, it is. It is real. I got news. Yes, it is real. Disney NFT collections. That's the official verified account. It has the golden check mark, so it's not just someone who spent $5 and then imitated Disney. They got an ad to it. This is so lifeless. It's just music and a bunch of spinning golden models with a video filter. Actually incredible. This was November 8th, 2021. Nothing ever changes. What is... Okay, how is this actually real? Finally, you just gotta laugh at this stuff. To be fair, the rendering's done pretty nice there, but... I mean, it's impressive, but just why? Why is Disney doing this? And it was sold, you had to buy a currency to then buy these premium items in a blind bag. It's just everything. It's all the things. It's just all the little buzzwords of the buzz concepts slapped together. Blind bag grabbing, it makes you buy a currency to then buy the actual item with the fictional currency. It's an NFT. It's just Disney's existing IP that you can AR project in your house like a Pokemon in Pokemon Go. Come on. And of course, the thing that everyone has nowadays is AI. You just see that thrown everywhere for no real reason except that they can. And now I gotta do the thing again. Pull up another one. We've got Mattel has OpenAI on the children toys now. Why? What does this even mean? Like, Mattel just says they're gonna put AI in things, you just have to believe it. Sure, okay. Awesome, you can go ahead and do that. I'm not even talking about the article or reading it, I'm just throwing that up there because the headline actually explains everything. Nothing is explained anymore. So that's all you're gonna get. The corporate speak also always irks me. And it should irk people. There's this way that corporations put out these PR statements now. Maybe it's not new, but it always gets on my nerves. Anytime there's pushback in something, they're like, oh, we're preparing a statement to provide clarity. We just wanted to provide some clarity on the issue. And then they just say everything they said in the first announcement that got all the pushback, or they just explain the feature that they changed. But they do it in more words, and that's it. And they also downplay people's reactions. It's this AI AI stuff is just another head of the Hydra, another form of the same trend. Where it's like, it's bubble after bubble here. People rush all in on crypto, and it's all everyone talks about. They rush all in on NFTs, and it's all everyone talks about. They rush all in on AI, and it's everywhere now. AI is actually destroying the internet. So that's far worse than all the other issues, because at least crypto has a legitimate use case. At least NFTs were segregated, segregated. The AI stuff is everywhere. I go on Google now and I search for some image of something. I think it was of an animal, and I just could not stop getting hit with AI images. It was image after image, AI slop. I'm just so tired of seeing it. I'm so tired of the AI profile pictures. I'm so tired of seeing AI art. I'm so tired of... I'm just... bleh. That's all I can really say. It's the constant, unapologetic fuck you energy that you get from the world right now. It's invaded every aspect. I mean, it's unescapable. The internet's flooded with AI garbage, and that's everywhere. The economy's going to shit. There might be a war with Iran, so every morning I wake up and I brace myself to check the news to see whether Iran's nuked New York City yet, or something. I sure hope whatever happens, it happens when it happens soon, and it happens when I'm asleep. I'm done. Just nuke everything. I've got it. That's why I actually finally went back to doing these gate jump videos. I'm like, I gotta finish this game before the whole world ends. No way I'm dying with 70k gates. Over halfway there, I just gotta keep jumping. There is at least a feeling of purpose in doing something about it. Trying to fight back in some way against this push. I will not use AI-generated stuff. I will not accept AI-generated works. I will not promote AI-generated works. I will not be a part of anyone using AI generators. I know, like, 3 years ago in the Iwana community, I think I asked if AI generation should be okay in fan games, and I was kind of on the leaning towards defending it, but I've seen what it... As I've seen this develop, no, get rid of it. It absolutely needs to be pushed away. I was curious about it at first. I'm sick of it now, and thank you to everyone who made actual, who rightfully discouraged use of AI. When I did post that in the Iwana community, and you can find it, it's still there, that poll is. Although the original post of that poll was a Twitter post, because this was before all of that happened. So the original poll is gone. But I did post the results of it in the Iwana community. Not that it really matters, because it's not like there's a rule against it. I was just wondering from the ethics point of view if it's okay. And the answer is no, I don't think it's okay. Oh. Hello there, thank you for chiming in. Oh, Panker. Monopoly AI makes up Chance Cards Edition. Oh, no, Monopoly... is it? Yes, that's true. AI does share the first 2 letters with AIDS. Hold on, let me actually reposition my... Make chat for the... Yeah, okay, there we go. I hope you're still here, Panker. It's good to hear. To have someone chiming in. Let me actually look that up. If that's true, that's crazy. I see a thing from the New Yorker, and it already popped up some ad. If you have an article on that, please share it with me. Or some source on that. Because if there's an actual AI generated... That's just crazy. a post here from the New Yorker, which I'll show, but it's not what you're referring to. This is a satire, a commentary on AI. Making fun of the losses every month on AI stuff. AI military contract, yep, that happened. Income taxes are due, 0, because they're not making any money. Pop star sues you. Yep. It's all exaggerated. It's all fluff. SCOTUS corruption. That's the. I'm going down these. That's the second on the right from the top. Get out of jail free card. Just buy the SCOTUS justices, indeed. Carbon emissions skyrocket. Yep, the AI's doing that. Deep fake tech sways a presidential election. I know Elon made some fake brochures and stuff. Oh, okay, girl. I see. Sorry, I thought you were serious. At this point, I don't know what to think. At this, that's the thing with AI now. Like, everything's, the whole sphere, the whole concept is so absurd. How do you know what satire? People said this back in 2016, and they said it with the when Donald Trump had that McDonald's dinner. They made the comment that the Onion's going to go out of business because real news is so absurd. But seriously, burning billions of dollars every year, having all investors being over the moon excited to throw money at a technology that no one understands, which is burning billions of dollars every year so that some people can AI generate videos of Martin Luther King saying things he didn't say, or of celebrities eating pasta, or of Ghibli studio style pictures of immigrants getting deported. Like, it doesn't make sense. If you were to propose this as a movie, the critics would say that the premise was just absurd. And they'd be right. This doesn't even make sense. Like, what is the plan here? What is the end goal? And the answer is there is none. It's just a whole bunch of hype upon hype upon hype. This is the new tech craze. Just like with crypto and with NFTs, there's no real end dream or end goal to come towards. It's just a bunch of tech bros trying to get venture capital funding so they can pay themselves to be the head of the company that got venture capital funding. And we saw it with WeWork, which was just took a bunch of IKEA furniture, subleased in a large apartment to smaller businesses, and gave them free beer. That's what WeWork was. And WeWork got a ton of venture capital funding, a ridiculous amount. You have $400 million for some juice press, and let's actually look at the actual numbers of WeWork funding. Yeah. See, it got valued at $47 billion. All that it was renting an apartment, and then, or not an apartment, renting an office floor, and then subdividing it, putting in IKEA furniture, and renting out each individual unit to smaller companies. And the crazy thing is, like, Google and even Google and Microsoft were renting offices from WeWork. It was like everyone was talking about this company, and all they did was subleasing, which is already a thing that people do. You have drug addicts that sublease a part of their apartment so they can afford their fix, usually illegally, but sometimes legally. In fact, Airbnb is just a different form of subleasing. People subleasing their home. And now it's large firms buying up homes just for the purpose of subleasing those homes because they make so much money off it. None of this makes any sense. It's inherently irrational. But it also runs the world. And it's also... The thing about politics is if you try to not pay attention to it, it will come in and it will hit you. I think I downplayed the importance of... I I kind of cared about politics, but I didn't like really pay attention to it until I guess when I saw the BLM movement, I saw the police shooting protesters there. But even then Biden got in and I kind of stopped paying attention to politics, and then it came in and hit me again over the head. It's one of those things that I think you inherently people feel a desire to not pay attention to because it's not fun, and it's very easy in today's tech-filled world where you have all sorts of distractions. It's easy to just kind of bury yourself in that and be like, no politics, this is a positivity space, a positive, easygoing vibe space. But the reality is everything is politics. Your job is affected by politics if you have one. If you don't have a job, your unemployment benefits are politics. If you live in the United States, your lack of healthcare is politics. If you live anywhere else, the quality of your healthcare is politics. Actually, if you live in the United States, the quality of your healthcare is also politics. Just because the government isn't paying for it doesn't mean that it's not political. I think, actually, that's probably the biggest takeaway of this, from this whole climate that I'm in, is that because people try to look at politics like an isolated thing, and they look at it kind of like going to the ballot box and voting. But politics is also just the social climate that you live in. And in that aspect, I know people will say that LGBTQ people shouldn't be politics, and it's true that I don't think that it should be a political debate about whether they have a right to exist. And at the same time, any type of person is affected by politics. Transgender people being accepted is political. Straight people being accepted is political. Churches are political. They exist in the same society as the rest of us. Video games are actually political. If Google launching Pac-Man on their homepage could cause... Hold on, let me get the actual article here. Because this sounds absurd, but it's true. I mean, this article is a little this article is a little sensationalized. I got a Fox News. Alright, well, people are kind of back and forth on the actual validity of the statement here, but if you remember when Google had that homepage with Pac-Man on it, the idea just being that just a simple thing like that allegedly caused money and lost productivity, but then HuffPost argues that it didn't. The whole argument's kind of stupid, but fair. Rescue Time made some article about this. No real point here, just back to the original thing I was saying before I got sidetracked on the Google Pac-Man idea. Everything is inherently political. Fan games on their own are a type of... They're art, and that art is itself a reflection of society that we live in. And its existence is dependent on that society. With fan games, the big thing is intellectual property law. Fan games kind of exist as a... Fan games, to me, always were a statement against corporations and against the walled gardening off of certain ideas. The idea that you can see this, you can play this game, but you can't use these characters on your own. And fan games stand against that idea. With unapologetic copyright infringement. Just flipping you off. Or not you off, but flipping off the big companies that want to take all your... They want to have a monopoly on their characters. presented, like, I presented a, two conflicting ideas here. Like, on one hand, I've been complaining about and talking about how we're all doomed and the world's blowing up and stuff. But on the other hand, I do actually have hope still. I don't think we're doomed. I think the world is blowing up. I think that's a fair thing to say right now. But I don't want to give up on it. Don't just bury yourself in the sand, and don't just shut out all the news. Because we can fix it. I do believe there is hope. I do believe there is change. And I think the apathy is actually the most dangerous part. I think the apathy is exactly why. That's why we got to where we are here. You know, it's not just enough to... Because it isn't just enough to have good ideas. If you're a politician, you have to actually have people support those ideas. You have to have people vote for those ideas and rally for those ideas. And so this idea that politics is like too serious, or that it brings people down and you shouldn't talk about it in mainstream spaces, I think that is exactly playing into the... It favors the rich and powerful, because if you were to, say, only have political conversations through paid advertisements or through politics-only spaces, then you're giving an advantage to those who can pay the most to shove political advertisement in your face. If we normalize the idea that we shouldn't talk about politics, then it forces... It means that the only politics that gets talked about is the politics that has big money backing it, that can shove it in your face like all those other advertisements that are intrusive. I personally believe that people need to be political, unapologetically, every day, everywhere. I mean, within reason. Like, not at a funeral. You don't need to go to a funeral and argue, universal health care could have fixed this. It might not be the most appropriate place there. You know what I really want to see? I really want to see more political art. And I say this as someone who has been working in Game Maker for years, and I fully do know that be the change you wish to see and all. You know? And if someone wants to collab with me on some political art, I happily would. I think that's the only thing I could actually get myself motivated to do, is a political project with someone else. Just putting that out there. Yes, that means you. If you're thinking that you're not sure about it, you don't want to commit, that means you. I'm talking to you. You. Collab with me on something. Especially if you're outside the mainland United States, because like that way, if I get nuked, at least I know my work was on. You can carry it to the finish line. I shouldn't make remarks about getting nuked and stuff. That just promotes the apathy. That's gonna just give more fuel to the people that think, what does it matter if the world's screwed anyways, I just don't want to think about politics. You know, that type. Memes also can have... There's been a fair number of memes that have actually, I'd say, are political art. Anything that's affirmative to queer people, for instance. The J.D. Vance faces, the memes of like warping J.D. Vance's face. I'd argue that the chaos-based memes, things like NecoArc, things like... NecoArc's a mean one. Any memes about like arson or... You know what? Holy fucking bingle. I love Maya. Gotta throw some attention to Maya. Maya Arson Prime You. I love it. Throw some attention to the activist kitty. It really did put the United States and imperialism on the spotlight. You know, put pressure on the U.S. That and the fact that the United States like responded trying to imprison Maya. The United States was completely offended over that. It's really funny. And if you don't know, I think it was like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. Maya Arsenkrimiou is a hacktivist, an activist hacker. And Maya, leaked the no-fly list. It was messing around on... It was exploring some, I think, an airport or maybe a carrier, an airplane brand, travel brand. In exploring their servers with, I think it was, Maya was using Jenkins. And it happened to find the no-fly list. First, it found a way to test the name against the no-fly list. The software that the no-fly list would use, that people TSA agents or gate agents would use to check a name against the no-fly list. And then Maya traced that back to how it was working and what it was doing. So it was downloading the no-fly list from a source, an external source, checking the name, and then deleting the no-fly list. So Maya just copied the no-fly list and then had the no-fly list. And if you don't know what the no-fly list is, it's a list of names of people. It's entirely anonymous, and the United States refuses to release it. It's updated regularly, we think, we don't know. And it's just people that, if they try to board a plane, they're told they can't. It's one of those undemocratic things that the United States does, while also claiming to be for its people's safety. Is it true that it's for safety? No, it obviously isn't. It's entirely arbitrary. Most of the names on there are Middle Eastern sounding names. I think there's thousands of people with the name Abraham. It's just no one knows what really it is. Now Maya copied the no-fly list. She, sent it to, I don't know how to open. Maya posted its email address, and then I think journalists could contact Maya, and then Maya would send them back the no-fly list. But I think it's leaked publicly now. I actually have not looked at the original no-fly list. Shame on me, I guess. I should probably hop on that or something. I don't know. It's been publicly leaked now. From what I recall, though, I think it was Maya had an... Well, Maya's version would obviously be from whenever it sourced the no-fly list. Anyways, Maya's also just a political thinker and a general, pretty grounded person, pretty smart person, pretty smart kitty. So I do always, I follow Maya on Tumblr, and I do sometimes just scroll through her blog, its blog, excuse me. Anyways, my original point there was, memes like that, memes like Holy Fucking Bingle, memes like Neko Arc, Lahaj, Bridget from Guilty Gear. Those are important. They send a political message, they promote a political belief. We need stuff like that. We need more memes that just make fun of the alt-right and that promote leftist ideas. And in order to really have that, in order to encourage that, we have to normalize politics. We have to promote and encourage politics. Oh, of course, how could I forget the most recent, specifically leftist meme. Luigi Mangione and the shooter Brian Thompson, who is obviously not Luigi Mangione. Free Luigi, he's innocent. But the talk around United Healthcare and Brian Thompson's death and healthcare in the United States in general. I think it's very important I'd argue it's very important to leverage a sort of pop culture presence Because we know that the incels, the Andrew Tate type, they're using that leverage too. And unfortunately, it seems like they're gaining ground. Misogyny is growing among young Gen Z users. Especially young Gen Z men. Well, yeah. Misogyny is growing along. I meant to say, bigotry is growing among young Gen Z people. Misogyny is growing popular among Gen Z men. The tradwife movement affecting Gen Z and Gen Alpha women. And actually, the misogyny is going as young as elementary school, which is Gen Alpha at this point. And arguably Gen Beta? Is that true? No, Gen Beta's in like the toddler years. Gen Beta is growing up on Cocomelon right now. No. Maybe? Okay, I'm gonna look this up so I don't just say a bunch of nonsense. I'm not gonna be a podcast person. Oh, no, Gen Beta is just been born, actually. Pulling up the Wikipedia page. Literally just been born, 2025. No one knows when to actually break the years. Okay, cool. Well, I'm going to read this a little bit. Gen Beta will be impacted by declining birth rates. Gen Beta will be more focused on these issues. Gen Beta, I think, will really care about climate change. I do agree with that point. Not for the reasons that... Not just because their parents care about it. I think it's going to directly affect Gen Beta. It's going to hit full force. Dad, tell me about Hawaii. Tell me about the Hawaiian Islands. Back in my day. Gen Z parents aren't going to be. I don't think Gen Z's going to be. I'm going to take that back. I don't even know if that's a fair thing to say. Because so, like, 5 years ago, I would have said undoubtedly that Gen Z is going to basically not be parents. There'd be a extremely low birth rate among Gen Z. But with this recent shift towards the promotion of the idolization of traditional life, and like a fictional version, the vacuum cleaner type commercials of the 60s, not the reality of life in the 60s where women drank themselves to death, men came home from work and beat their family, where kids were neglected, and not that kind of stuff. But this picture perfect view that trends on TikTok and it trends in the news, and of course J.D. Vance preaches it in Congress, in the White House, and Speaker Speaker Mike Johnson preaches it in Congress. This idea of like a life that was simpler, where you didn't have work stress, where you came home every day to a wonderfully cooked meal. If you were, a cis straight man, came home every day from work, from your fulfilling job, and had a home cooked meal from your cis straight wife, and everything was cis straight perfect, and everyone was happy. The thing that never happened, because obviously people were not happy if they voted for Ronald Reagan to destroy the American dream. Although I guess you could say they also it was just a... Anyways, there's a lot to say about Ronald Reagan. I don't want to go down that path. But this unrealistic fantasy scene of life in the 60s, which looks like it was from it stems from code cinema, the cinema that's brought in line with what the government wanted to preach, So basically, people are huffing old propaganda. That's what's happening here. Vacuum cleaner commercials were not tackling the hard issues of the 60s. They were trying to sell a product that would make your home a little easier. Home life a little easier, you know. And I think we all know that. It's like if people were to look back on the 2020s and were to take a Super Bowl ad of people drinking and partying and be like, wow, life might have been perfect in the 20s. We need to bring in more people like Trump because everyone was dancing and drinking and partying all the time. You know, that's the kind of unrealistic standard. But if you're at the point where you can assess the ads in that way, if you can think critically about the ads, you're already not their target demographic. They're looking for the mindless scrolling, the subconscious, not even consciously thinking person that just scrolls on TikTok, liking certain videos and pictures. And frankly, TikTok as a whole as a platform is just a disaster that I think should be shunned. I don't think it should be banned. I don't like the idea of banning art, and I really don't like the idea of the current government banning anything, because I know what their goals are and I don't like them. At the same time, I don't think we should normalize being on TikTok. I think it should be viewed as something that's done for the mentally ill. TikTok should be looked at the way that people look at Watch People Die. You know, it's a site that exists, and I wouldn't want to ban Watch People Die. But I also don't think that going on Watch People Die is a healthy activity. Like, if a kid was, or if anyone, if I saw a person scrolling through Watch People Die, the website, I would kind of not want to be involved with that person. Probably. Definitely. I certainly would not feel, I would not be happy with that. It wouldn't be something that would be brought up casually in conversation, like, oh yeah, I was watching Watch People Die. Do you see that video of the woman that gets her head sawed off? But that's the way people talk about TikTok, and I think we need, that's the way, that example is how people talk about TikTok, and I think people should talk about TikTok like how they talk about Watch People Die, in that it's like something that everyone's like, oh, you're on that place, you're there. Less normalized. Social media in general, I hate, and this is why I'm alone. This is why I'm alone and no one talks to me, because I'm annoying like that. No, you shouldn't be on social media. I don't like social media. And again, I don't want it banned. I don't believe in banning things. I think the social climate should just be discouraging these. Anything online, I think, should be separate from the government. And I'd say the reason for that would be that it's a lower risk profile. Like, it's one thing when you have people dumping waste into streams. It's one thing when you have people who are unsafe drivers that are putting others' lives at risk. But since you can just not go on TikTok, I'd think that banning TikTok was not the right move. I'm just making that point. Because that did actually happen. Something like, what was that a year ago now? No, it was right after the election, but before the inauguration. Biden banned TikTok. Yeah. That's what happens. It's hard to keep all this stuff straight. Honestly, it's so much. What my original point was. What was I even saying? Oh yeah, but with this promotion of traditional values, I've seen an increasing number of worldviews which I laughed at first because it seemed so absurd, but now they're actually gaining prevalence. You know, like with the toxic masculinity is one that I think most people have heard about. Also the trad wife movement. The idea being like promoting this idea. I'll go through them one by one. Traditional masculinity, alpha male, whatever the hell you call them, toxic masculinity type, you know, it's not even traditional. It's this own hyper aggressive. It's like it seems like how you depict orcs in a fantasy setting, except extremely sexualized, which maybe in a hentai you would have seen orcs like this, I don't know. The idea that men should be tough and muscular and yell at each other and fight all their problems out, and then have like a legion of women around them. It sounds so absurd. I feel so weird saying this, but this is actually what they're. I'm just echoing what I'm hearing. I'm just echoing the views that I don't agree with. The Andrew Tate type, but like in particular, I've heard this toxic masculinity view making arguments against contraceptives, against birth control, against condoms, against hormonal birth control, and promoting this idea of specifically of impregnating women. And I'm going to be honest, I at no point thought that in 2025 the leading movement among teenage men would be that they should impregnate women, specifically with the intention of having child. I feel weird saying this now. I still remember growing up in the time of hearing that if you can't feed them, don't breed them. I don't know what the hell could ever drive an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old in this economy to think that it's at all a good idea to strive to conceive children. Especially with how much they talk about hating women. Like, on one hand, they'll say divorce is rigged against men, which they have kind of a point there. And on the other hand, and they'd argue about against society and women and whatever, which I don't agree with that. But if you hate women, leave them alone, And at the same time, they're out here complaining preaching this idea that they should aim to get women pregnant. I've been trying to rationalize this in my head for months, and it just doesn't click. I'm out here. It's fucked up times when you got the asexual out here trying to convince teenagers, begging them to be like, can you just go back to talking about having sex for recreational reasons? Like, what is this breeder type shit? It's so weird. What is this breed? It's this hyper misogynist, but also like completely impractical. Like they don't want to have a child to raise a child. It's almost like they want to have a child in the same way that you'd want to have like achievements. Because they complain about women, they complain about dating, they complain about all this, the realities of men, and they complain that divorce is stacked against men, the child support courts, the family courts are stacked against men. I mean, what are they hoping to get from impregnating these women? Do they think that, well, the answer is, I think it is that they think that women would just suddenly be loyal to them if the woman was pregnant with the man's child. And I also think it's a lot of groupthink. I think it's a lot of herd mentality of Andrew Tate saying something, or whatever toxic masculinity influencer saying something, and everyone goes, yeah, in that sphere. I truly don't understand why anyone would ever follow that viewpoint. Like, even among the typical conservative man, like someone who doesn't care about identity politics, who doesn't care about other people different than themselves, who doesn't care about black people because they're like a white straight man with no ties, no empathy. In what world do you follow Andrew Tate's view? And I'm not even like, I don't want to be judgmental, because I know at the same time, as someone who has lived in the United States, like, I know this place does not treat mental health issues. I know it doesn't serve men well, or women well. It doesn't serve anyone. In fact, if you're 99% of the population, you're getting fucked over. It doesn't matter if you're a cis man, if you're a trans man, this country screws you over, and it screws over different people in different ways, and some more than others. Like, if you're a white man versus a black man's gonna get screwed over by this country a lot more than a white man. Because, you can think of America like, break people down into a bunch of different labels, and each one of those labels is connected to a way this country fucks you over. So if you're a poor white man, you're poor. That's the label. So you're going to struggle economically. If you're a poor, depressed white man, poor, mentally ill, you're gonna get screwed over for those things. If you're a black man who's not mentally ill, who isn't poor, who doesn't have any other issues, well, you're going to get discriminated against for being black. You're going to be marginalized for being black. You're going to be pushed aside in corporate spaces, in business spaces. Obviously, the police brutality issue, which the BLM protest was all about. The only people who win, so to speak, in this country are the rich, white, straight men, unempathetic, who, and by win, it's really more they don't lose. Again, this country doesn't give them anything. It's not like Qatar, where the majority of people who fit the ideal life vision don't have to do any work, and because the government has servants doing the work for them. It's the people at the top. The money that they have, the unreasonable money they have, comes from the way the economy's just fallen into place. It's the government inaction. It's not government action. And that's why you see every level of divisiveness, just every bit of divisiveness stack up against certain people. And truly life would be, we can just look at in history books, there's people alive now who existed before the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act was the only time where the government had to be pushed really hard just to make it illegal to discriminate against someone for the color of their skin. The discrimination that exists in America, it at this point is not inherent in the law, but it's inherent in how the law is enacted. I think that's the best way to put it. And sometimes people who have a lot of money can sort of smooth out some of the ridges on issues. Like if you're it's money and fame. So if you're a famous, wealthy black person and you find yourself in an encounter with police, you can use that fame and your status to avoid those encounters to a degree and to kind of try to defuse those encounters. And I remember during the Black Lives Matter protests, hearing stories of football players who were being roughhoused by police, and then the police was like, oh, wait a second, you're that football player, and all of a sudden the tensions are just gone. This isn't excusing or I'm not blaming the football player or saying that what happened there was okay. But I'm just saying the reality of life is. You can break down each person's experiences into those labels, and usually there's this country, because it has not been forced to, because there's no rules against discriminating against people for most of the labels, and because the rules that exist are barely enforced, and there's all these, like police brutality, it isn't official discrimination, but it's a real issue. And yeah, it affects white people too, but if you're a rich white guy or you're a famous white person, you can bet they're gonna pass you right along. Politics is complicated, I will say that. And I think I'm stumbling over my words here because there's just so many different directions to think. And I'm also kind of worried about misconstruing my belief. No one should face hardship. I don't think anyone should face, especially not societal created hardship. And if we just had a kind society, these things wouldn't be an issue. I'm not saying we should go, we need to have laws that protect people, and we also just, the social climate in the United States, I'll drop the politics part. The social climate should be such that people aren't being discriminated against. Because there isn't a law, well, okay, and that's no longer true. Fuck me. If you go back a couple years, there isn't a law at that point in 2022 that requires discriminating against transgender people. There isn't a law that prevents schools in, let's say, 2021 from allowing students who identify as transgender to use the woman's bathroom or the men's bathroom, depending on how they identify. In fact, there isn't a law that requires gender segregated bathrooms at all. But you have, because of there isn't a law preventing discrimination, people can discriminate, and the social climate in the United States, the judgmental, the Christian fundamentalism, whatever it is, it encourages that discrimination. There wasn't a need to have discrimination. Before the Civil Rights Act, nothing in the federal government required the states to have segregation. I guess my point is just, I'm sad that people have to hate each other. I'm sad that we need to fight about whether people of color, whether women, whether gay people, trans people have the right to exist. I mean, just let them exist, for God's sake. You don't have to be trans. You don't even have to date a trans person. It's, that's one of the things that people complain about on the right. They're like, oh, well, now if you don't want to date a woman that has a penis, you're going to be called a transphobe. And meanwhile, transgender community, pretty much the unanimous agreement that I've heard is that your genitals only matter to medical professionals and to your partners, which makes sense. Like, I don't need to know whether my boss has a penis or a vagina, whether they have, I don't need to know any of that. Anything. It doesn't matter. It is relevant in a relationship, and so, but also, like, it's never, none of these arguments are coming from a place of good intention. And I know that. We all know that. And so there's a voice in the back of my head saying, it doesn't even matter. But then I also see trans people getting beaten up for using a bathroom. And I see people getting hate crimed on the street. I see protesters fighting for the rights of immigrants that were just abducted in a van and taken somewhere. And it might have been to an ICE detention center. It might have been to El Salvador. We don't even know. And then I say, even if it doesn't matter, even if nothing that I'm doing is actually creating any change, I've got to at least say something. I've got to at least talk about it. We have to at least make noise about it. And if it takes a year of people constantly yelling about the fact that a woman was grabbed off the street, that people are grabbed off the street left and right, put in vans and sent to places by people that may or may not actually be ICE agents that have no judicial warrant, that are being then extradited outside the United States without any consent, without any judicial oversight, without any, sending the person to a country they didn't even come from. And not even to a country, but specifically to a death camp, or a labor camp, a concentration camp at the very least. If it takes years of yelling about that, so be it. If there's no exact way to know, like, we're never going to know what exactly we need to do to make this stop. But this should be, this isn't simply, my taxes are going up politics. This isn't the kind of politics that makes your life slightly less convenient. This isn't potholes in the road politics. This is the fundamental safety and security in our own lives that's been uprooted and that is gone. We're talking about the death of a democracy. Every American should be blaring the 5-alarm fire right now. This is the 5-alarm siren yelling every single possible, pulling every stop. And I'm not seeing that. I'm not seeing it from Congress, and I'm not seeing it from the people in this country. And perhaps perhaps in the people amongst us, it's this toxic positivity mindset that you need to find your own inner peace. I'm gonna break it to you. Your inner peace is not going to save you if you are hauled off the streets and put into a death camp. If you are ordered to fight in the war in Iran, your inner peace doesn't matter. Why don't we focus about physical safety first? Inner peace stuff is fine when it's wars that are happening in another country. I understand. I don't like it, but I respect it. The idea that you would focus on your inner peace instead of focusing on, say, the atrocities in Palestine. But when it comes to, and I say Palestine, but I'm like Hong Kong also, Taiwan also, I think we should care about those people because I think you should strive to be a global citizen. I think, well, we've seen that the same people that are hurting the protesters in Hong Kong and Taiwan are also our enemies. But I can tolerate the idea that you shouldn't focus on politics all the time when it's something happening abroad. I disagree strongly with the idea that you shouldn't focus on politics when it's something that's happening domestically. I think it's essential when you're, and really, as much as I hate American centralism, this is actually essential to the entire world. What happens in America is essential to the entire world. What happens to America will affect the rest of the world. America has military bases in everywhere from Canada, Australia, Japan. If the United States goes on a rampage to like claim Canada, to claim Greenland, and achieve world domination or some shit, it is a threat to world peace. It is a threat to peace in every nation. Okay, let's say you live in Bulgaria. You live in Slovakia. True, you don't care whether people, or you might care, but it doesn't affect you whether people are getting deported, ripped off the streets in America. It affects me, so I'm going to talk about it. But if the United States declares war on Iran and drags Russia into that, and Russia attacks the EU, and the EU attacks Russia back, and now all of a sudden it is a global issue. People are clinging to this idea, and the toxic positivity mindset tells you to cling and fight for your own feelings. That's sweet. At the same time, it's not going to matter. Well, the idea that you should focus only on your own positivity, on your own well-being and how you feel, instead of focusing on the bigger issues that are impacting your own well-being and how you feel, it comes across as very defeatist. It's the mentality of someone who has given up on change, who's trying to do damage control and just assuming that the United States will descend into fascism. I don't want to accept that. I'm refusing to accept that the United States will descend into fascism. I could be, moving numbers around, moving words around in a game maker project right now. I could be making avoidances and having cherries move along and dance to music. But I'm not going to accept the idea that I just sit by and let the United States descend into fascism. And even if everything I do only ends up, it doesn't end up actually affecting anything, which I kind of feel like everything I do right now, it's not going to really change anything. But if it at least has a chance of inspiring one other person to do one other thing to stop this, then it's worth it, isn't it? So as annoying as it is probably for non-Americans to constantly hear about me talking about the American election, in the American politics, in the American government, it's important to me to at least be saying something. At least I can look back on this time, and you too can look back on this time and know that you did something. That's what you should strive to do. Sacrifice your peace and your personal thoughts for a little bit. Take time out of your day, not just burying your head in memes and music and whatever else, but actually pushing back in some way. Even if it's just being a voice, preaching for change. Even if it's just being a voice, documenting what's going on. Just make one poem, or make one song, or one game. Make a video game. Calling for change. Or just make something that would give someone peace who's struggling with this country right now. Make, like, a game about killing Donald Trump. There's a game about killing Elon Musk. I think it's just called I Wanna Kill Elon Musk. Absolutely awesome game by, was it Shinobu? Stuff like that. That's what y'all should be doing. And I've been trying to make a furry comic. It's going to some degree, I think. So I was hearing himself outside. Lost my train of thought there. I think part of the reason that politics is also sometimes shunned in online spaces because there's people there who have unsavory political views who just kind of want to hide that fact. They don't want to change, but they also don't want to face the consequences of admitting that they have the views they have. So I do like forcing politics in spaces as a way to sort of force those views out. It's a lot easier to just be saying some occasional... It's a lot easier for those who have unsavory views to just occasionally say a weird thing, make a weird comment every once in a while and be brushed off. Whereas if you actually push political stuff, push the political conversations, then they usually end up saying what they feel or just leaving. And it's always better to not have people like that in your life. That's also why I'd frown at the idea that you shouldn't talk about politics on a date, or you shouldn't talk about politics with close friends. Because how do you know that they actually, at least when the politics is this severe, you know, we're not just arguing about tax brackets, we're talking about whether you believe that certain people have the right to exist, whether you think the government should be able to deport citizens at will, whether you believe that we should all be surveilled under the Palantir social credit system that Peter Thiel is pushing. That's the kind of politics that got me into this sphere. As much as I kind of do sometimes regret being in it. Not because it's bad, but just because it is a little lonely sometimes. Come on, people. When are we... Like, I guess you have to find people that have the same views. It's It's lonely to be a politically minded person in a non-politically minded group. It's not lonely to be a politically minded person in a politically minded group. But this also be my call out to the world. If there's any groups online of political artists who make political art, please invite me in. What do we have? 37,000 key gems left.